Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's March 23rd. This will be a chart lesson for the day. And looking at the daily chart with the envelope bands here, you can see that what looked like was going to be a huge rally day backed off, and we did close up, but we closed back inside that trend line, as you can see, and we closed much closer to the bottom. There's a higher low there. To me, I felt like this would probably be a consolidation day. And that's what this feels like after such a huge bear sell-off. The market will usually go sideways a little bit, so we'll see if the downtrend continues tomorrow and we continue back down, or if we just kind of continue to go sideways, or maybe even up still. We just have to see. But to me, I kind of felt like today would be um, a slight rally or consolidation type day, and that's what it kind of turned out to be. Um, it's just a lot of selling for one day. And usually the market will need to take a little rest before it continues lower, or it looked like it might reverse out of here, but now after the end of the day, it doesn't look nearly as bullish as it did at one point today when we were trading way up here, almost near the highs of this entire move up. So we'll see what tomorrow comes. Today is Thursday, so no chart lesson tomorrow. Um, this will wrap up our week, and I won't be back until Monday for our next chart lesson. But let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart, see what it looks like on today's chart. And what happened was we had a nice rally, but by the end of the day we had a sell-off. So we recovered some of that sell-off, or we would have closed even lower. But let's flip over there and take a look, and we'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up, we'll wrap this week up, and we'll call it a week. So hold on, we'll go over to that other chart. And here's our 2,000 tick chart. And you can see that we traded up here and then turned and sold off. And we actually made a lower low for the day, much lower. But we recovered some of that before the market closed at 4 o'clock. The market just closed a few minutes ago. So you can see you're better off probably playing these shorter term trends, but there's a bigger yellow channel here. Same thing, there's some shorter term trends up here, but there's the larger blue, light blue. I think that's light steel blue is what that's called. And this yellow is a khaki. It looks kind of yellowish, but it's a khaki. Um, but you can see it there, the nice rally up, the kind of continuation, um, kind of a correction after yesterday's big sell-off, and then another big, huge sell-off. And we just kind of chopped sideways after that. But we did close it towards the high of this sideways stuff. So there it is. Let's zoom in. Quite a few trades today. So we'll zoom in and go through the trades, and we'll wrap this down. Let me show you this right quick. This channel going up, I believe this is an overshoot, and that led to the reversal. And you can see after we got below that trend line there, it just kind of accelerated. So I believe this is an overshoot here that just led to a reversal. I tried to get it to fit. If you try to make these highs fit, maybe if you moved it to a different spot, like maybe right in there, maybe that's it. You still get the overshoot. I just played it like this because that fit out most of the day till we shot up here to, we got this spiking channel here, shorter term within the two-tiered blue channel, and then we had the break, and then we shot up to this new high, and then it reversed and sold off. That's the way I played it, and that's the way I saw it. So let's zoom on in. We'll go through these trades, and we'll wrap the day up. I'm going to try to zoom in a little closer. Somebody asked me yesterday, said they're having a hard time seeing the candles, and I try to remember to zoom in. I don't always get it right, but I'm trying to remember to zoom in for you and so you can see the candles a little better and the stems and so forth. So, but clearly what we did here is we just started off these first two swings. 7 o'clock came right in here. And we had a second entry long here, but that looks a little congested. Not a great signal bar. Pretty much is kind of a neutral doji type bar. But it comes back and gives you a third test here, and it actually makes a new high here. It's higher than that swing right there, and so that's a first entry, second entry. So you got a triple test, second entry, Much better signal bar. Still got a little stem, but there's enough room to get out there back to those highs. So I like that one. That was a quick, easy move, and then it turns down. It is a little aggressive, so I made it green. It's not a perfect setup, but there's more than one reason. You got a second entry long, a triple test. Um, you tried to go short 1, 2, 3, 4 times actually there at that price level. And so I like that one. It breaks out the top, but not much there. You get two legs down, and then it confirms this trend line right here. There's a hidden second entry in there. That's a little more advanced, so if you don't understand what that means, don't worry about it. Technically, by the counts on this chart, this is a first entry long. And you may not have got in this trade because it closes on its high, opens on its low, and just keeps going. What you usually have to do here is you have to switch over to a limit order and hope it comes back and gets you. Wouldn't chase it. Maybe you might chase it a tick or two, but anything more than that, I generally just put my limit order where it would have gone one tick above the signal bar and hope it comes back. And if it doesn't, then I just let the trade go and I look for another entry. But you can clearly see you got another entry right here. It's an engulfing bar. And somebody asked me about these today. If you're not an experienced trader, do not trade an engulfing bar. Wait for them to close. And then even then be real picky about them. Because you will get chopped to pieces, and what looks like a nice engulfing bar entry will end up sometimes closing this. By the time this closes, it's negative again. And if you try to sneak in early or whatever, and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get burned. In this case, you got a first entry, and it breaks lower there and turns back up. So when it breaks above that 2-bar matching high, that's a second entry long. So if you know what's going on here and you're an experienced trader, maybe you trade that engulfing bar and you take that second entry long. Otherwise, wait for it to close. And by the time it closes, the bar is really big. Maybe you still go long there, maybe you don't. It's just, there's still probably room to get out. And the fact that we just came off the trend line could mean we're going much, much higher. So, again, it depends on your skill set and how good you are at reading the chart. Otherwise, wait till they at least close and then make your decision. So this thing runs on up real quick, and then we're just kind of working sideways here. There's a little bit of a downtrend there as well. But I think you were better off just to play this sideways. I don't see anything short I would take there for sure. Maybe you go long here, but I'm not even crazy about going long right there. This is the pullback to test the midline. But I think you need a little higher low or something, and you don't have much room for a higher low really. So, I mean, you could argue that to be green, but I'd wait. And then, of course, you get a second entry long right here, right off the key entry point, but it's an inside bar. And you just can't trust them because you see what happens here, and a lot of times it might just keep going sideways or stop you out and then turn up. So no entry there, and then we're working sideways again, and you get another failed breakout. But again, I just don't think you want to go long right there. I think you need something better than that. You get a higher low here, but it's right into the midline, real tight, not a lot of room there. We're just chopping along. I just don't see anything I like there. And of course, you get two legs back here. This is real tempting. There's a hidden second entry in there. Again, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. That's very advanced. You shouldn't be fooling with those right now anyway if you're new. But basically, if you went to a slightly smaller chart, you'd see a second entry right here. That doesn't mean you want to take it, but if you understand what prices are doing and it's a place where you can tell that's an important key entry point. And we've tested it multiple times, and it's holding again, and there is a hidden second entry, so maybe you take that trade. I think you're better to wait on a higher low, which comes right here, so when it breaks above those little 2-bar matching highs, that's a second entry long. I marked this one blue, but it's real close. You could almost argue it to be green because we had another bar here. We really got a 3-bar matching high, and it didn't get above it that time either. And that's a little bit concerning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times we tried to go higher and couldn't break above that. But with this coming off this trend line and being a slightly higher with plenty of room to go, if it breaks higher, it's probably going to go. And it did. So, but again, you could almost argue for that to be green. You get a failure here, but doesn't set up properly. And then, of course, we come off the high part. I don't think you want to be shorting yet. You get what looks like a break here. There's no setup here. There's a second entry right there, but no setup. And notice you got a little channel working down. Should be more like this. And it looks like you get an overshoot and it kind of takes off, but it comes back and it gives you another second entry right there. But again, no setup. But then it breaks lower and fails and turns up. I would not trade the engulfing bar there in any form or fashion, but maybe you go long right here. It's a little bit bigger bar, but you clearly tested that support multiple times. And again, that's right off the midline. We just came off the highs, and look how many times we bounced off the little small dash line. If you can see it in there, is the midline on the big two-tiered blue channel. We've bounced off that multiple times now. So it's a proven play, and so I'd say take that trade right there, and you can see it takes off this time, and it just really takes off. There's no other entries up here. It's just kind of chopping. You're expecting this thing to reverse at any time, and then it finally does. Notice you got a new high there. You get a first entry, you shoot on through second entry, and so when it breaks lower there, that's a failed second entry long. Technically, it makes a second entry scalp there, but I still treat that like a failure, and it turns down right off the key entry point. Fairly bearish bar. I like going short there. The signal bar really doesn't matter here, but it was one time it was very bullish, and they beat it down. So if it breaks lower, it's going lower. And then you get a first entry, second entry, and of course you do get a break of that blue one. I like that as a second entry short. Didn't get a runner on that one. That's another thing. I didn't see their chart. They didn't show me where they entered, but somebody emailed me today and said they had a 25-point runner. Said it was their first really big runner ever, and they were real excited about it, and they should be. We talked about how those can change your math, and he was real thrilled about how it changed his math. So, I mean, you think about a single contract at 25 points, that's a really nice move. So, congratulations to that trader. But anyway, you get a triple test right here, nice signal bar on another second entry short, and then you get a lower high here. I almost marked this one green because you would have expected it to kind of take off by now, but I mean, it looks like there's a trend line, and that kind of confirms it, and then you see you get a little selling now. Then it comes back, and there's another hidden second entry right there. I marked this one green just as a lower high, really. But there is a hidden second entry, and you might call this a double top, and so a first entry. There's a second entry right there, and it doesn't break lower till here, so the failure would be there. So there's a couple different reasons to look at that one. I marked it green. You're probably better to wait. We drop on down, no entries down here. Then we get another correction, close outside, new high, right off the trend line on the second entry short. After this is played out perfectly, you can see that's a nice move down. And we get a little support off the original blue trend line right there, but it doesn't hold long, and suddenly we get a triple test. And that's what you want. You want to see this thing, you want to make sure we're not going higher again. I mean, I was pretty confident we had a reversal here, but there's always a chance this thing goes and tries to make a retest of that high. So by waiting on a triple test with plenty of room to get out, that's the smarter move. And you can see once you got that, prices kind of take off because the smart traders know that stuff. They're not going to enter over here on something questionable. They're going to wait until they've got proof. And a triple test, counter trend triple test usually will lead to the trend reestablishing itself. And you can see that's exactly what happened here. And that kind of set the trend line, and then we come back again here. That's like a third entry, not a very good signal bar, and then it breaks higher here and fails. So that's just a lower high in a downtrend after we just came off the key entry point. You just didn't get a setup up there at the key entry point. But I think that's a good one to take. You could even take that on the engulfing bar. In fact, on the engulfing bar, that's only 6 ticks, so it's very low risk there. Again, if you're not an experienced trader, I wouldn't recommend that. And if you didn't take it on the engulfing bar, you may not enter down here right next to that low, but most likely this thing's going on, which it does. It comes back and you get a second entry. Oops. Second entry here, but the signal bar is no good. Looks like you might get a lower high, but look how sideways that is now. I didn't put it on here, but I should have. But you got to be careful going short right there now because of all this support right here. And you can clearly see there's some sideways stuff. You can see how flat the EMA got right there as well. And it breaks out the high side and gives you a second entry short. That's the first break of this green channel. And we're still in the yellow one. So there's still probably lots of room to go. And that turns out to be a great trade. And you'd get a runner there. And notice you try to go long, go higher once, twice. So that's a failure when it breaks lower right there. Unfortunately, you don't get a runner. Turns back down. There's another failure there, but that's just too congested sideways. This whole thing's too sideways. And then we drop on down. And I just don't see anything here. This one you might have taken. But you clearly had a break and way into a new low here. But there is a new trend line here. So maybe you at least take that green. But you can see you just came off the low and you kind of worked your way back to the high, and it almost had to go sideways. So that means the market's still weak. So that's another clue that maybe, hey, it's okay to take that short like that. And this thing just takes off again. Then you get a perfect repeat pattern. It's the same thing over again. Except this one's even a little better because it at least makes a double top. It may even make a new high there. I can't remember if it was a double top or a new high. 65 and a quarter is the high there. Yeah, it makes a double top right off the key entry point with a huge, nice signal bar. Great move. And we're just chopping sideways again. Of course, you got a channel working here, break, new high, and then a lower high. That's just a first entry, so I think you want to wait on a second entry or a lower high, which comes here. And I wasn't really crazy about that one because you got a lot of support across there. I marked it green because we've been in a really strong downtrend, so we're probably going to make a new low. You can see it went on fairly easily to make that new low, and then it bounces. I don't see anything here that would tempt me to go long there, and there's nothing up here. And of course you turn down again, and I don't see anything here. On this first move, you get a break, but you could still get a new high here. It runs down, makes a new low, then we start up, close outside, makes a new high. And so I like that one simply because it's a triple test. It's just a first entry short. So actually it's a first, second, third entry short. So it's not a second entry or anything, but it is a triple test after a break. This is actually a little more like this. After a close outside and a new high. And you also have a triple test in there, boom. There's a lower high here, but again, you moved a little too far to consider that a lower high. Maybe you look at that as a failure, but again, look at all that support across there. So you got to be real careful. I wouldn't risk it. It would have worked. If you'd entered either one of those, it would have worked, but I wouldn't risk it into that support there. I just don't think it's worth it. Run on down, and then next thing you know, we're working higher. And that takes us into 230. There is a lower high here. You got to close outside here and move to a new high, and then you got a lower high. But when you get that inside bar and it still doesn't break lower, now you got congestion there, you got a little support. Go right at 230. I wouldn't risk that. It still worked, but you can see what happens. It reversed on you. And that's what you're afraid of here. There's some buying coming in here now. Otherwise, this thing should have went lower. And so you would have got lucky this time, but next time you may not get that lucky, and it may not go this far before. A lot of times what it'll do is just stop you out, and then it'll run the other way. It'll move just enough to run your stops and get you in the trade, and then it'll back up on you. But there it is. We'll back out and look at it one more time. We had a trend up with an overshoot, and then we just reversed. Big, huge move down, and then we just kind of chopped sideways, closing near the highs after that. So I don't know how you would describe this day. Just kind of an up-down day. Up-down. It's just a consolidation day is what it is. That's what I would call this day. The consolidation day. And that's what we kind of talked about that yesterday. There's a good chance that could happen. And I forgot to talk about the 730 unemployment, but you'd probably want to pay attention to that. So it didn't really affect anything because I think you can see nothing happen. So the little part I should have had marked off would have been from, let's just put it on there, would have been from 7 o'clock, actually from about 7:15, but by 7:30 you could tell there was no problem there, and so that it doesn't really affect those trades that I marked. Maybe the green one, I think that might have been had played a little bit more and why I marked that green originally. So not much happening. The unemployment didn't affect much this morning. So there it is again. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. That's going to do it for the week. We'll be back again Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.